Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, there is one public hearing on tonight's planning and zoning and meeting agenda, specifically for case 2024-002 related to the proposed development at 923 South State Street. Can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second to open. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Staff?
Thank you, Chairman. The case before you tonight is case number 2024-002. The applicant, For Development Investment Group, has submitted application for a special use permit for a planned development and preliminary and final development plans in one step for a 30-unit multifamily development with a commercial storefront for the property located at 923 to 929 South State Street. The 2009 Downtown Master Plan is the relative city plan, which identifies that this land is currently historic mixed use. The historic district is characterized by architecturally significant buildings, higher density, and concentrated commercial uses. The plan establishes that population density is critical to downtown Lockport, especially to retail-oriented businesses. Housing in and around the downtown is a priority for the long-term economic success of its businesses. In 2009, the study found a demand of 320 to 360 units of urban-style housing in and around the downtown projected over a period of 25 years. Although the city has experienced growth, new development has not taken place in and around the downtown. The property is located in the Nationally Registered Historic District and received a certificate of appropriateness by the Heritage and Architecture Commission in January 2024. The property is currently utilized for public parking. The prior building was a single-story building that housed multiple storefront units. Originally, the building was constructed in 1950s for the first major grocery chain, A&P, in the downtown. Once A&P vacated, the building was divided up into multiple tenant spaces. It later accommodated many users such as Lockport Bowling Alley, Currency Exchange, Furniture Store, Stevenson Photography, Weber Denim, and a weightlifting facility. In November 2010, a fire had broken out and the building was later demolished. Since the demolition in 2010, the property had been vacant, later being developed into a parking lot, leaving a significant gap on the block. The subject property is zoned C4. Within the C4 district, dwelling units above the ground floor retail are permitted. The proposed submittal calls for a modification to allow dwelling units to be located on a portion of the ground floor. Additionally, a parking modification will be needed. Where two or more variances or modifications are needed, a planned development is required. The request will be for a special use permit for a planned mixed-use development. A planned development is granted through the issuance of a special use permit, which is authorized by the City Council upon recommendation from the Plan and Zoning Commission. A planned development establishes standards and procedures to provide flexibility and relief from bulk regulations within districts. It encourages sound and imaginative design while providing assurances to the city that in return, the outcome will be a higher quality development. Staff finds that the proposed infill development is appropriate and compatible to the historic downtown. Provision has been made by the developer to provide parking and will utilize the city's parking permit program if additional spaces are needed by residents. The proposed development will be a safe and desirable environment. The burden of establishing that a planned development is necessary, desirable, and meets all standards of the special use shall in all cases be the responsibility of the applicant. Next, displayed on your monitors is a rendering. The proposed building is a 3-story building with lower level parking that will be accessible to vehicles from Commerce Street. The first floor is a combination of commercial and retail space and residential apartment units behind the storefront. The second and third floors will be dedicated to residential apartment units with 11 units on each floor. The first floor will have approximately 1,800 square feet of commercial space and 8 apartment units behind the commercial space. The number of commercial tenants is unknown at this time. The residential units will consist of the following mix: a total of 27 one-bedroom apartments and 3 two-bedroom apartments. The building is rectangular in shape, having a zero lot line to State Street. This is consistent with other buildings in the district, with the exception of the neighboring 921 building to the north, in which that building has an unusual setback for the historic State Street block. In order to relate to the 921 building, the applicant has stepped back the north portion of the facade. An alternative parking arrangement is needed. The developer has provided lower-level parking, I'll show you that on the monitor, that will be accessible from Commerce Street. Given the downtown location, a shared parking plan will be supported by staff. The breakdown of the spaces: approximately 38 residential spaces plus 7 commercial spaces are required, and 19 have been provided. Next is the elevations, which are displayed. The elevations are in conformance with the city's design standards. The elevations show architectural interest both vertically and horizontally, using elements such as banding and indentations in the brick patterns, having a column-like effect. These features extend through both the lower and upper facades. I'm going to switch back to the rendering real quick for you. The parapet is designed using brick to create the detail that was historically created by wood construction. In addition, a different colored brick will be used to highlight the detailing, maintaining the characteristic height of the historic parapet, but rendering it differently, consistent with design approaches for new buildings in historic downtowns. The elevations show the building will be a brick veneer with brick block base on the east elevation facing State Street and having composite siding on the north and west elevations. Window sills and bands will be either precast or cast stone band. The commercial spaces will be comprised of a contemporary aluminum storefront with fiberglass window system. Wall-mounted LED light fixtures are illustrated on the rendering. A trash container will be enclosed within the indoor lower-level parking area that will be accessible from Commerce Street. And an engineering review has been performed. The development plans have been reviewed by the city's development engineering consultant, Jamlin and Associates. All engineering-related items have been addressed, and the fire district provided comments that were included in your packets. This item received a certificate of appropriateness by the City of Lockport Heritage and Architecture Commission prior to the Plan and Zoning Commission's agenda. Should the commission find the proposed mixed-use residential with commercial development acceptable, the following motions are suggested. A motion to adopt staff's findings of facts and recommend approval by the City Council of a special use permit for a planned development to allow a 30-unit apartment community with a commercial storefront and lower-level parking. And B, a motion to recommend approval of preliminary and final development plans in one step. This concludes staff's analysis.
Thank you. Is there anyone here present who would like to provide testimony in support or against the application? Please step up to the microphone. You can be sworn in.
Steve Winters, I'm a resident on State Street.
And could I have you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
So my concern is considering a special use permit with some zoning variances. And maybe one I want to address is the change to allow residential on the first floor with a combination of commercial in the front and residential in the rear of the building. that would be provided for the plans that I've taken a look at. Commercial space is very small in relation to the footage, the frontage footage. So my question is, has anyone considered what type of businesses would be occupying these very, nominal type of spaces? I mean, are we going to be creating token commercial space that may not get developed or utilized? I mean, we have other examples of the Dunkin' Donuts as a second space next to that, it's unutilized. So I just, have concern about, reduced space. Are there businesses that have applied or that are being considered that would be able to operate in that kind of environment?
Hello. I'm Donna LaJulia.
Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And could you state your address?
My address is at Paradise Bay. I think it's, and I have 110 East 10th Street, the apartment buildings, next to the Moose. First off, I want to say, kudos to everything that's going on down there within the past, we've been there for, I don't know how many years, 20 years, and outstanding what you guys have done. My only concern, parking. For example, my husband and I were down there Saturday night, went to the bay at 6 o'clock, looked for a parking spot, went over the tracks, nothing. Came back to Paradise Bay, which only had 6 people in it, our lot was full. Had to park on Hamilton by the houses and walked all the way. That was February, 32 degrees. What's it gonna be like May, June, July, August, when it's really hot? That's the main concern. Embers, they had parking, and then they were allowed to build their rear garden, took away some of that parking. Not the Mule, I don't think they have any parking. They did a great job on the east side behind Jackie's and whatnot, open that up, but there's no overnight parking. So I have tenants in my building, 9 of them, who have stickers, okay? They go to find a parking spot, can't park, they're parking on the street, okay, fine. But now at 3, they gotta go out, and they have to run and see if there's a parking spot, because they have to move their car, because they can't park in the street at night, and there's no parking. That's a major issue. What's the plan? Is there a plan? 19 parking spots, I believe, are gonna be underneath the new building. There are 30 units. Most likely, everyone's gonna have a car. So now you're already short. Some people, I know in my building, even 1 bedrooms, people have 2 cars. Now there's more than 19 needed. Where are they parking? Where are their friends parking? Where are the customers parking for these units? Where are the employees parking for these front units? Where are they gonna go? I don't know. Do you guys have answers? Any plans? Any plans? No plans.
We'll take all the questions and then we'll respond
Okay,
to all of them.
all right.
Yeah.
Let me look at my notes here. I think I hit everything. And again, kudos to everything you're doing down there. It's great. It's just a lot of more stuff going on, people driving. And I know that you have, on the weekends, over by the restaurant, you have valet. But that's not for everyone, you know what I mean? And people are parked here, they might not want to come to the baker's, like, oh, we're closer over here. And that's great, but it's just like, it's too far for people to walk. Not just for ours, but for everybody's, Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to provide testimony? Seeing and hearing none?
Chair Pro Tem, before you go on, the developer has the opportunity to address those questions. This is like a formal hearing, so the
Okay.
developer's here, the developer or the applicant
The
can be
developer
sworn
step
in.
up
Yep.
and
And then after sworn in, you could just state your business address. Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
You said,
Yes, state your name and your business address.
my address is 28 Mohawk Hawk Lane, Clarendon Hills, Illinois. To address,
And your name?
oh, Dan Clister. I guess just to address the two main concerns, as far as the retail space, we will be leaving this, or as shown on the plan, as flexible of a layout as possible to accommodate, you know, as many prospective tenants as possible. Once we do have some of these prospective tenants, we'll be able to further the layouts and or plan for what could take place as far as commercial space on the front of the building. Concerning the size of the space, I believe it is going to be the 12th largest space in the downtown corridor out of, I believe, about 36 spaces. So I guess as far as the percentage of the building, I understand it looks small, but in relation to the existing spaces downtown, it would be on the larger side of space there. And then parking, understand it is a concern, and as a potential owner myself, that is something we will have to address and work through. It's a downtown, a growing downtown, and I see that as a positive. We will work through these, situations as they come, and I do see, in addition to the garage and permitted parking, the Metro as a positive. A lot of other transit-oriented developments do factor in use of the train, and though we don't know exactly how much that will be used, I do see that as a positive, as well as our unit sizes being on the smaller end of the spectrum. Typically, we would expect to have, one occupant and at most one car. So, I guess that would be it for now.
Okay. We have a motion to close the public hearing?
If there are,
ma'am.
this is an opportunity for someone
Go ahead,
else to
step
come
up.
in, and also the commissioners could ask any of the people who've spoken so far, including the developer, any questions too. Go ahead. Rick, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God? Good, and if you could state your name and your address.
I just wanted to mention that I am concerned also with the change in how the downtown has worked for the last 100 years of not having living space on the first floor, having it only commercial, and I think this is a big change for our community, and I recommend that you think very carefully about what you're doing, because other people who have businesses may want to change their fronts to living spaces, and then we have no downtown that has any interest for anybody. Because people like to come down, they like to look at things, they like to walk from place to place, they like to visit stores that are working, whatever kind of stores they are, or businesses, whatever they are. And I would like to recommend that that is a very important thing for you to consider as you make your decision, because it's changing everything for the last over 100 years. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, go
The
ahead.
developer has an opportunity to address that question. Go ahead, Mr. Clister.
Though I understand it's classified or technically first floor space, we are building out the retail off the state side of the property. So as the building would appear aesthetically and then ultimately function, it would be units behind that, not visible or impacting the State Street either facade or use landscape. Off of Commerce Street, we would be elevated off the actual first or paved level. And so we are looking at this, as a modified first floor, because it is well set back, protected, and ultimately off the ground on the State Street side of the property.
I would suggest a couple things from a zoning standpoint related to some of the questions that had come up. From the commercial square footage side, I think the applicant is correct. This would be larger than the vast majority of our spaces downtown. And I think as I communicated to many of you, the overall floor plate of this building is very large. It would be I believe it's our largest, it would be our largest floor plate in the downtown. Many of the people that run retail shops know that they wouldn't have a space that goes all the way as deep as this building is. But the amount of commercial that is shown on the plan is something that, we would feel comfortable with from a size standpoint, whether it's divided up into two or remains a single unit, that it would, exceed the size of many of the retail spaces across the street. Probably the one difference from other retail spaces is that it's more horizontally oriented along the facade of State Street as opposed to the other direction off of State Street going back towards Commerce Street. Many of our other spaces go that direction as opposed to horizontally. We do have a couple that stretch along the frontage of a building, but this one would be along the front portion of it. With the parking component of it, as I shared with many of you also earlier, based on our parking study and the counts that were done in July, we took advantage of the car show being there to try and do counts to make sure that we were looking at the largest demand periods during the week and then also on a typical weekend. And as I share with you, probably 90 to 95% of the week, parking wouldn't be an issue. However, there would certainly be a Saturday night, as Mrs. LaGiulia had mentioned, where it would be a little bit more difficult to find those spaces. It's obviously something that we would look to resolve. Every development that we propose downtown won't have parking on their own lot because it's just not, they aren't big enough to accommodate that. The 1016 building that was approved by City Council and this body earlier did not have any parking associated with it, and the 4 units that were tied to it, those are utilizing stickers as well. And the one thing that I'll recircle back to related to the retail component of it is the code requires that it be commercial on the first floor. And at a minimum, we would always make sure that that commercial faces State Street so that the mixed-use commercial retail street frontage would always remain that way. And similar to this project, it would require a special use permit in order to have residential on the first floor. But we have only one other building that is this size of a floor plate, and that's Lock and Mule Restaurant. So the opportunity for others to place residential on their first floor is relatively limited. So I would offer those things from a zoning and existing condition standpoint.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of bring that up as well to speak with the individuals that spoke. Is the less commercial on the first floor is also probably better for the overall parking situation. So you add 7 or 8 residential units where you have the vast majority, I would guess, would be one person living there. So you have, let's say, 8 cars, whereas if you have another, let's say, another restaurant the size of Lock and Mule, that would drive significantly more, parking issues, I believe, on the weekends than just having the 8 units on the first floor. So that's one thing that I know we haven't done a ton of this, and it's just kind of due to the unique layout of the building. But I do think that the overall impact on parking will be less from the residential than it would be from if that was all, what would it be? Probably about 6,000 square feet of retail. So that would be my saving grace on some of the parking concerns, is that one or 2 cars maximum per unit versus a restaurant or something like that would draw a lot more traffic.
The overall floor plate is approximately 9,360 square feet.
So that'd be additional 7,000.
Lance, maybe you can help me out with this. Do you know what the current retail vacancy is in Lockport or even downtown?
Overall, Lockport is 1.7%. I just happened to look at that today. Downtown Lockport, it's probably relatively similar to that. As probably many of you have noted, a lot of our new spaces, whether it's the space next to Dunkin' Donuts or the 1016 building, are vacant because they are a higher dollar value associated with the higher construction costs of new buildings. So that all plays a role in that. But as far as any other spaces, there aren't a lot of others that are vacant currently. We have a number of offices on the second floor where there is an elevator, or it was historically office on the second floor and didn't need to meet that building code that was set at the time or set later than when that was established. But many of our units downtown are residential. On the upper floors, we have over 40 apartments that are downtown. We currently have 10 stickers. Sounds like 8 of them are with the Ojoya family. But we have 10 stickers that are currently utilized between the Hamilton lot and the Commerce Street lot. I believe there are 1 or 2 that are in the Commerce Street lot right now, and I believe that the other 8 are in the Hamilton Street lot. The South Public Landing parking lot has 79 spaces in it. So all of those numbers were in the parking study that I shared.
Right. And I'll circle back to the price point, but the apartment deficit or rental homes that are available in Lockport, with the development of the Springs going in up by 355, where does that put us? Are we still, even if all 3 phases are done in the next year or 2, where does that put us in trying to catch up to where we are as far as housing?
I would say the difference between the downtown and out by the interstate are 2 totally different markets. I don't believe that there is a lot of mix and match between people that are trying to get to the interstate all the time to go to Oak Brook or Naperville or wherever they work versus folks that would be out there that are easily accessible to the interstate. So I would suggest that they are different markets. As Kimberly mentioned earlier, the downtown master plan suggested that we could accommodate anywhere between 300 to 360 apartments downtown itself. We are nowhere near that quantity level at this point. And the multifamily study that was done probably 6 years ago suggested that we could accommodate 3 to 4 300-unit developments, apartment neighborhoods out further away from the downtown core. So, currently that would be Highland Ridge at Archer and 355, Continental that is currently under construction, the Springs at Lockport, and then to be determined whatever the other 2 are. There, obviously, as you all know, Serenity Landing did have an apartment as a part of their project, and that is on the far south edge of our community. Probably also a different market that would be working primarily in Joliet or Fairmont or any of those types of areas, as opposed to what you may find in the Continental Springs and Highlands that's much closer to the interstate interchanges.
Okay. And then I just have a question for the developer. What are your price points on apartments? And general, if the vacancy is driven by a higher price point on the retail sector in Lockport right now, with the couple that are vacant down there, any idea, have you went through the hard bid process of like, hey, this is generally what the building's going to cost, this is what we're going to need on a per square foot basis on the retail to justify the expense?
Sure. We do have a budget put together. We have not bid anything out yet. Upon approval, that's when we would go through that process. But as far as budget, we would be on the higher end. I guess it could be comparable to the Highland Ridge pricing. In some cases, a bit lower than where they're at. And then as far as the retail space, we are, we've got a number in our budget, but we are prepared to again, accommodate or figure out how to best work with a tenant so that it does not sit as vacant space in the downtown corridor, so.
That's most likely going to be, boutique or retail-esque, not necessarily like a juice bar or something along those lines, or is it just kind of first come, first serve, and will you have the ability to adjust the retail space to, you have a restaurant or a food use associated with it?
Yeah, at this point, again, we've left the plan very flexible, and so we would look at, all options at this point and make sure that the tenant, both from an operation standpoint is strong and then from a financial point is strong, so that we and the operator can, be successful in the long term.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Can you have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion,
Second.
second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any further discussion among the board?
I have some concerns about the retail space, just because I do believe that is kind of the spirit of this, is to encourage retail, which we don't really have a lot of. And, back in 2017, I bought a building, and I had a dream, and that dream was retail. I have a multi-unit building downtown, and I understand the challenges of retail, just like Mrs. Winters and other people do, that I think to keep this from being another juice bar or a restaurant or offices, I think we should do whatever we could to encourage that. And I know that that it's not really depicted how you would build this out for a tenant, but I would like to see it a little more deliberate, because aside from it, just this great big space, you have to think about things of a utility room, inventory storage, bathrooms, a kitchenette. There's a lot of other things that would have to go in there to make it desirable. I know when I first walked by, the retail space at Dunkin' Donuts, it's not built out, so it doesn't really look like anything, like anyone would want. But I do think I would be more comfortable if it were deeper and it were a little more thought through, and also with the built-in plan to have no parking for that. I mean, I know parking's always an issue in our town. It's either real or perceived, but I just wish that this were a little stronger on the retail instead of really what drives profit is the residential. I get that, but I would like to see this much stronger on retail, because we don't have much other retail space, and that's what draws people into our. We have great restaurants now, but where are our charming boutiques? We have the great candy store. Who doesn't like beanies? But we don't have other complementary businesses that make our town more charming, and that's what I would like to see in this.
Any other comments from the board?
The public hearing's already closed. Yeah.
Lance,
There was a motion made by Commissioner Wheeler, seconded by Quinn, to close the public hearing. So once the public hearing is closed, the commissioners would deliberate without any additional questions and response. Obviously, the commissioners can open up the public hearing if they desire to do that, but it's really up to the majority of the commissioners to do that. It would actually be up to the commissioners, not the public members.
Do we want to
make a
reopen the
motion.
public hearing for this gentleman?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to open back up the public hearing.
A second.
Motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Sir, want to step up to the microphone?
Get up too.
Again, I apologize, I did not realize you closed it. I think I heard it, but when you're sitting out there, it's not
If I
always that
could
clear.
Have you raised your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
So help me God.
And please state your name and address.
Sure, my name is Nick Morrow. I currently live at 200 West 11th Street.
Could you spell your last name for the clerk, please?
Mauro. First name Nick. So I'm a resident of Lockport at 200 West 11th Street, and I'm also the GM of Embers Tap House. And I just came here to make sure everybody realizes parking. I know you were talking about it. We have events where people come into town, and like you said, maybe 95% of the time is not, it won't be an issue. That 5% of the time is worth a lot of money to me in my restaurant, and a lot of money to people downtown. That 5% of the time is going to be worth a lot to the new restaurant across the street from us, Opera House, or whatever they're going to call it, when they have banquets. Now we're going to have 2 big banquet halls, people driving around and around the block. Old Aunt Edna, she can't get out of her car. She's got to drive around and around the block. I hear this all the time with the way parking is right now. We would like to see or hear, and maybe I missed it, there's talk of a parking structure going up on the other side of the ice cream shop, right? In the open lot there. I saw the picture of it at the last State of the City meeting at Embers, okay? I would like to see any reduction in parking associated with a promise to get the other parking lot done. We need it. If we want to grow downtown, we need parking. It's of the utmost importance to bring people into Lockport. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You have a motion to reclose the public hearing? Ma'am, would you like to?
Yeah.
Go ahead, proceed up there.
Hi, I'm Tina Keller.
Do you swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And if you could state your address?
My address, 16433 South Lakeview Drive, Lockport. My question is with the apartments, not necessarily how much you're going to charge for them, but what do you expect to do with them? Why do you expect them to be there? Are they going to help the parking, or are they going to help the interest of the Lockport downtown? I don't know why you want more apartments in that particular spot. I guess that's my whole point. That's it. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Would the developer step back up, please?
I think much of the conversation tonight's about growth and success downtown. We see this location as one that would be, high in demand for residents, and we see residents, as a growth driver in a downtown area. So that's why we've selected and are trying to move forward on this property.
In essence, your market research indicates there'll be a strong demand for these apartments?
Our market research indicates this would be a successful location for a combination of apartments and commercial space, yes.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to reclose the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion,
Second?
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, panel,
There was a note under the fire district and building official reviews that they had comments and there was a report attached. Maybe it got misplaced in my folder, but I didn't see comments from fire district or building officials. And I'm just curious, were there any major issues or any problems that they saw?
There were not any significant fire-related issues. The one that is that we work through to get resolved and will continue to be worked through as the building permit is processed relates to the egress of the adjacent building. There is a 2-hour wall that is on both sides, both on the Embers side of the building as well as what would be proposed for this building that resolves that issue. This building does block 4 of the 5 windows that are on the adjacent building as well on their north facade. There are no air rights that adjacent building has over this property, so there isn't anything that restricts that. So we'll be working with them as a city to kind of work on the inside of whatever that ultimately ends up becoming, or whatever the building owner would like to do related to their windows. Those are the 2 major ones. Sprinklers are provided throughout the building. It's up to all of those codes. So those were the 2 that were most out there, but a lot of them will be dealt with at the building permit level.
Okay. I don't have any other major comments. I've obviously parked in this lot to go to Embers. I've gone up the stairs on the south edge of the Boy Scout building. The lights on the Boy Scout building don't always work, and I think once this building goes in this way, they'll have to make sure that those stairs are properly lit for anybody going from their back lot to the front. Obviously, that lot won't be in there anymore, but having an illuminated circulation corridor there for whoever's going to use it would be important, just from a safety aspect. I appreciate what appears to be, well-designed acoustical divisions between the apartments. I think that's important for them to sell. And Matt asked the question I was going to ask about who you're going after in terms of retail clients on that first floor. It seems to me that having more people living in this area will help bring more people to support boutique-type retail spaces. Obviously, parking's got to come along with that, and with the work that planning has been doing for bigger picture additions, doesn't always happen immediately. It's got to evolve. Things move forward together. So, appreciate their work. That's all I have.
Yeah, I think with any aspect of growth, there needs to be a thoughtful approach to the short term and the long term. And there's the whole, if you build it, they will come type thing, right? So if you have people living downtown, now it's a little bit more attractive for another coffee shop or a retail store or something along those lines. But then there's the other side, which is, it's too crowded, nobody goes there anymore, right? The old saying. Well, we have done parking studies. The parking study did suggest that it's during the car show on Mondays and then Friday and Saturday nights prime time. And we know that that's where the majority of the restaurants make their money. We know that that's where the majority of the bars probably make their money, is during those, special events. So we want to be, I think, sympathetic to that aspect while also planning for the long term. There's projects the city is involved with, improving wayfinding signage, improving just overall circulation, and I think that we need to make sure that that stuff happens. Is building a $100 million parking garage good for anybody? I don't know. I don't know if we're ready for that, and I don't think this 30-unit building would be the thing that sets that off. Now, if we have something come in and it's 150 units and it's 5 times larger than this, and they're only providing, 50 spots or something like that, then I think maybe we get to that point. But I do think that, while we do look at each of these deals and each of these items individually, we also have to look at the long term, and that's what I think we're tasked with, and that's what the city council is tasked with, and I think that's what Lance and Kimberly have so generously kind of helped lead us throughout this process. So we do appreciate, especially when we do get public comments as well, because, something that I may not have thought of or that Matt may not have thought of can be brought up by the residents that live there every single day and the business owners that are in that community. So thank you all for your feedback, and I think that, looking at this in the grand scheme of things is the way that we have to operate, not only just looking at it as an individual deal. So thank you.
I just want to follow up. Janine's comment was I think, very important from a development standpoint, speaking to people with experience in the retail area of downtown Lockport, to be very targeted and very specific who you go after and what that space has got to do to accommodate that type of tenant. And she's good experience you might want to talk to.
Anybody else?
Last thing. Parking's the biggest issue, and we all go to the restaurants that you all so generously let us into. Is there a way to offset, since we are, talking about a decrease in parking in this specific area, and I know we had that valet service thing that was running for a while, is there, and I don't mean to say like a taxation on a developer, but an offset where if it's X amount are displaced in this case, where if this one's 20 short, there's X amount of, dollars will be associated to or, go into a fund for either the parking garage or the valet system, so to better help the restaurants and bars that are down there. I mean, I don't know how to necessarily propose that nor what type of dollar cost is associated with it, but just throwing out an idea more than anything.
Yeah.
Like maybe there's a bit of an offset that, especially if developers know about it on the front end, they can build it into their cost and adjust accordingly.
Yeah,
So-
no, I think it's an excellent idea. We're getting together later this week to talk about some other strategies that we can start to implement related to parking, and specifically trying to manage the distribution of parking, because based on the study that we had, that was the real issue. A lot of our northern parking lots are really empty almost all day. And so, there is a way to try and distribute that. One of the biggest issues that we had last year and the year before is that our valet service was parking their cars 4 spaces away from where they were dropped off, which obviously doesn't resolve the issue of how to manage parking. So we have rebid that valet service. The new company that is coming on board, starting, I believe, in March, has committed to parking cars only at City Hall and only at the Metro lot. So it will be interesting in and of itself to see how that impacts the total distribution of cars and how much more is available on the streets. And so I know that, for Nick and many of the other business owners here, it will be interesting to see how that impacts that component of it. If and when a restaurant and/or banquet facility opens at 1000 South State Street, our plan, at least right now, is to add another valet stop that would solely service either Embers and them, or whoever would need that, because that will obviously have a very high demand for parking. We're also looking at tiered sticker costs. So you can park for a very low cost, either at City Hall or the Metro lot if you so choose. You can pay a higher cost if you want to park closer to where your building is, in particular for the apartment livers. But ultimately, we do have a lot of apartments downtown already, and the stickers don't seem to be as utilized. What the reasons for that, I don't really know. I haven't done that study. There are a couple of buildings that do provide some nominal spaces behind or around their buildings, and so that may cause some of it. But we do have a lot that they don't have cars or whatever, because there are no parking spaces available around their building. So I'm sure that all of that will get fleshed out, and as we always do, especially over the past year or so, is constantly try to balance our distribution, specifically on Friday and Saturday evening. Again, there is a 4-hour period between usually 6 to 10 that is the highest volume period that we have. And I think everybody that has talked about their parking issues have tried to park during that 4-hour period. the rest of the week and at other times, it does not seem to be nearly as much of an issue based on the data that we compiled last summer. So yes, we are constantly working to tweak and do other things. One of the reasons why all of Lock and Mule's employees park in the Norton Building parking lot behind that is we were able to work with them and the owners of the Norton Building to work out a lease arrangement, so all of their employees park behind there. Stagecoach employees park in a parking lot that is further south on State Street. So there are a number of different components that we use to try and leverage some of those areas that might be more underutilized, and we'll continue to do that. But we are anxiously awaiting the change that actual valet service that parks where they are supposed to be parking cars has on the quantity that's available.
Has there ever been a study, so maybe just, we were talking about that 6 to 10 window Fridays, Saturdays, I don't know maybe it is on Sundays, maybe like a shuttle service or something like that, and that was demarcated, and I don't know, just figuring out the general cost of that, and, it would be a slow build, but maybe that's also a temporary solution until the parking deck, garage, whatever can be built. So,
Yeah, I mean, a parking deck, I'm not sure if it's $100 million, but it is an expensive expense. And, if you look at places like Naperville, they tax their business owners in the downtown in order to build things like that. And they also tax them to take care of all the streetscapes that are out in front. Currently, the city pays for all of those things out of some gaming funds that we do aggregate on an annual basis. But that is always an option, that if we need to raise revenues, and honestly, this building is one of the ways that we can raise enough revenues to start offsetting a bond payment to build a parking garage. This building will generate roughly $350,000 a year in property taxes. Currently, as a part of our TIF district, we get 72% of that amount for the duration of the TIF district. The school districts negotiated back in 2009, 28% of that to come back to the other taxing districts. The TIF expires in 2032. Last tax income would come in 2033. We can extend that for 12 years. Beyond that, and there is a second extension that you can do for another 12 years after that. So when we start to talk about significant investments like a parking garage, that would likely cost somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 to $30 or $40 million, depending on, the exterior that needs to be done based on our historic downtown, any kind of parking management solution, lighting, and all of those types of things. That TIF revenue will be a significant part of paying the bond in order to build that. So if it is a $20 million investment, that bond payment will need to come from somewhere. And currently, our TIF generates about $250,000 a year, which for a TIF that is 14 years old at this point is negligible. We're able to fund a couple phase one environmental studies for some different properties. We're able to, do some of the paving that we do downtown, and we're able to support a development like this for a period of time to get them out of their financial the red ink that they will be in for at least 8 or 9 years after construction of the facility. But that money needs to come from somewhere, and just simply saying build a garage is easy to say, but that falls on all the residents to be able to fund, unless you have a funding source like the TIF district and enough development occurring in order to create that payment to be able to be allocated to that.
Yeah, I just think there'll be some probably graduated steps, would be it, I don't even know, rickshaws, I don't know, just something to point A to point B to get people to, the restaurants and alleviate some of the pain points that they're speaking of. So, all right, I'm out, I'm done, I swear.
When I go to the car show, I normally park in the north end of the Metro lot and walk over 2 blocks or so. But I realize most people aren't willing to do that.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's like any place. Everybody wants to park as close to their front door and the place that they're going to as possible. And many of the distances that we travel at Walmart and Jewel and other places are oftentimes further than what someone might walk downtown, but it's perceptually different because the scale is smaller and there are buildings in the way of you walking from that for this parking place in the Walmart lot to the front door of Walmart.
Any other comments from the panel? Okay, what is your pleasure? You got the staff's recommendation on the monitor there.
I'll make a motion to find the proposed mixed-use residential with commercial development acceptable, to adopt the staff's finding of facts and recommend approval by the city council of a special use permit for planned development to allow a 30-unit apartment community with a commercial storefront and lower-level parking, and a motion to recommend approval of preliminary and final development plans.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
You got it. Wheeler.
No.
Garland.
Yes.
Maloney.
Yes.
Oxley is absent. Peters.
Yes.
Likens.
Yes.
Quinn.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any other business to be discussed?
Nothing under new business or old business. I would just simply say from a staff standpoint, just for information only, we are starting our historic preservation plan. The last one was done in 1978, and so we are updating it after 50 years of effort to have a group actually from the Historic Preservation organization at Ball State University is going to come in and perform all of the scope for both of those things. They are setting up individual meetings with building owners next Friday. They are coming to the H&A meeting that we have scheduled as a special meeting on Thursday night before at 6 o'clock, if anybody would like to come. They're going to treat that as basically kind of a workshop session with them to kind of get opinions and thoughts and ideas from the commissioners, as well as meeting with the LAFS group afterwards. 22nd,
If I
next
could
Thursday.
just sorry to interrupt, but there's a meeting still going on, so if any discussion, if you could take it out in the hallway. Yep, thank you. Go. Sorry about the interruptions.
So, yes, Thursday night at 6 o'clock is when the H&A meeting will occur. The two key components to this, there are two contracts associated with it. The first one is related to updating the overall master plan. So it's the overall master plan from downtown. It will be organized very similarly to the existing master plan, but updated with today's best practices and information. We will also be updating our design guidelines that were developed in a draft form a couple years ago, adopted by the H&A. We're going to update those, as well as the overall master plan. The second contract is we have selected 15 buildings downtown that have never received a facade grant and never done many improvements in the downtown. And the approach that we are taking is we are utilizing the architectural skills that are being provided to give them basically a deliverable that will give them a minimum improvement, paint, awnings, different things like that, and a maximum level improvement, which would be a more substantial renovation. And the key to that, the hook that we are offering to them, is We will basically give them these sheets at the end. They will have all been approved as a blanket approval by the Heritage and Architecture Commission, which allows them to go directly to a facade grant without also having to integrate the schedule and the time to go through Heritage and Architecture. So all the commissioners feel really good about that because they do have the authority to approve or make modifications before they are finalized. But it gives all those building owners not only architectural plans and documents that are fully scoped out and have all the information that they would need, because many of our building owners don't know who to turn to. We tell them they have to have an architect in order to do this, that, or the other thing, and they just don't know who to talk to. So this gives them the opportunity to get the deliverable, to get the time and the expediency that would otherwise take up more time, and oftentimes for our more recalcitrant owners, discourages them from doing anything on their buildings. So that's coming up this week. It'll be actually going on for about 6 to 8 months. So it's a fairly long, involved process, but ultimately we should end up with a product by next fall. Any questions on that?
If there's no further business, we can have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Nice job, Bill.